What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and thanks for watching. Today we're going to talk about maybe the most widely used tool if you're a hard-sided fish house type fisherman, like to overnight camp in your ice shanty. Today we're going to talk about the rattle reel. So as it relates to the rattle reel, this is a very important tool for anybody who likes to do a lot of ice camping and leave set lines down overnight. These can range in price quite widely and even in style and kind of ergonomics. They make ones that will simply clamp onto a countertop, or there's also styles where they will actually mount to like a sidewall in your fish house and they will actually pivot out of the way. This particular setup I like a lot. Before we get into the rattle reel itself, I want to talk about this mount. This is, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. This is an Undercover guide rattle reel mount. And I tried to talk about this in one of my most recent videos, but this is just an absolutely incredible tool. And I don't know that video did it enough justice for just how useful this tool is. So my wife and I, we have two golden retrievers, and when they're in the fish house, they take up a lot of space. They're very high energy, and their tails can oftentimes hit rattle reel lines if we were to have a style that just simply mounts on the wall. What these allow you to do is actually put this rattle reel below the floor. They mount in your hole sleeves depending on whether you have fish hole buddy or catch cover style. There's different mounting options for these within your hole sleeves, but they sit below the floor and you can actually put a cover over the top of these. And where that gets really beneficial is, as I mentioned, the dog's tails won't hit the lines as they're set down beneath the ice. And also if you have kids, then you can put a cover over the top of it and everything's concealed under the floor of your fish house. The only downside to this is you need to be able-bodied in a sense, because you have to bend down to flip it up and use it. But effectively the way this works is when you get a fish, the rattle reel itself will spin. And what you do is you come over to the hole, and I'll overlay some shots of this, of us actually using these, but these actually flip up. And they have a couple different mounting locations. They can flip up and back like this. And this is really useful to get it out of the way so that you're able to set the hook with your hand and pull the line up. You can also kind of mount them at a high point like this if you want, so you don't have to bend down as far to actually, kind of maneuver and I guess pull your fish in. But then effectively what you do is after you get a fish, you just simply hit the little arm here and lower it back down, and it recesses below the floor. Absolutely incredible product. These guys are based out of southern Minnesota. Again, it's Undercover Guide. I'll link them below. They do just an incredible job at making a product that fits the needs of a lot of different people. I mean, whether you have kids, dogs, or you just have a hole in your fish house that isn't close to a wall where you could use a wall mount rattle reel, this will allow you to put a rattle reel in places that you maybe otherwise wouldn't. Awesome product, check them out. Next, maybe the most important piece of the whole setup is the rattle reel itself. These are ultimate outdoors rattle reels. I chose these for a couple of reasons. Number one, they have a reputation of having the best bearing in the business, meaning when that fish takes that line and runs with it, particularly on pressure water where you don't want those fish to know it's there, these rotate extremely smoothly, and the fish have no idea that they actually have a bait with a hook in it. Another reason for them is they're small, they're compact. You don't need a ton of line on a rattle reel. If you're fishing more than 30 feet deep, you're probably fishing maybe a little bit too deep depending on the species you're going for. But this allows you to have all the needed line on it in a tight, compact design. When you have them down under, kind of down in your hole sleeve, they leave a lot of room around the rattle reel itself for you to maneuver with your hands should you ever need to in this Undercover Guide setup. Absolutely awesome product. I will link them down below as well. They do a great job of just putting out a really nicely machined rattle reel that will fit the needs of a lot of people. There's obviously other alternatives that you can use for a rattle reel. This is my personal rattle reel of choice, and I'm very happy with the setup I have here. Now that we have the mechanism discussed, let's talk about what actually matters. So I'm actually going to pull this little line holder here off. Now this is just a Velcro line holder. I think Eagle Claw makes them. I'm not exactly sure who makes them. It just works nice for keeping everything organized when you're going down the road. These fish houses bounce around, and the last thing you want to deal with is, you know, your lines coming loose, sinkers hitting the floor, everything getting tangled up when you get to your spot. You want to go out there and fish. You don't want to deal with a headache, right? So, as you can probably see here, there's orange line on this. And the reason that's important, I'll get into in just a second, but what this orange line is this is weighted fly line. This is fly line that actually sinks. You can find this at you know, pretty much any tackle shop you go into, particularly if they have a preference for fly fishing options for anglers. I know Shields carries it. There's even ice fishing manufacturers that will bundle this in like 50-yard spools and sell it in a variety of colors. The reason this is important is the color itself. And when you are in a wheelhouse and you have, you know, multiple people, whether it's Victoria and I in our wheelhouse and we have 2 or 3 lines down, whatever the case may be, if you get a fish, and a big one in particular, and that fish runs, it'll end up tangled in any other set line that you have down. And having a different color line on every single rattle reel, whether it's orange, yellow, white, blue, black, whatever the case may be, allows you to differentiate between which rattle reels that fish is tangled up in, and allows you to more easily kind of get everything untangled in the heat of the moment. A lot of the times when that happens, it's 2 in the morning and it's dark and your brain's groggy because you just woke up. Make sure you use different colored line on each of your rattle reels. Otherwise, you know, you don't have to do that. It's more of a luxury than anything, but if you're going to invest money in a good setup that allows you to target the species you're after, and it's viewed as an investment that you're going to have for multiple years, invest in the good fly line, and it'll help you keep organized. Before I get too much further into the setup here, the other thing I wanted to talk about is this little bobber that you might be able to see there. That is a very important piece to this whole puzzle. That is your line marker. What I like to do is, when I first get out and drill my holes, I will actually, you know, throw a minnow on the hook and drop this down with a flasher down the hole or live imaging or whatever you have, and get it so it depends on the body of water you're fishing, but anywhere from a foot or maybe even 6 inches up to 2 feet off the bottom. Get your minnow set, and then you use this bobber here to mark your line, and that will allow you then, if you set it so that that minnow is exactly a foot off the bottom or whatever your target depth is, and that bobber's on top, just like it is right now, that bobber's on top, then you will know which rattle reel goes off in the middle of the night, because, well, number one, you'll be able to target with your ears which one went off, just based on the direction the sound's coming from. But when you go to them, if that bobber's not on top anymore and it's down below the ice, you know that's the reel that went off and that's the reel you have a fish on. So that's a super important piece to the puzzle. They're relatively cheap. I think you can get like a 10-pack for like $2 or something like that at a tackle shop. Definitely recommend investing in that, or use a split shot or something of that nature, but it's important to have that marker on here. There are some rattle reels out there that do light up, and that could be really useful for identifying which one's going off in the middle of the night, but you're going to need some sort of line marker to know what your target depth is, unless you plan on running a flasher in that hole all the time. Usually on rattle reels, I try not to run a flasher in the hole, just because the rattle reel itself will make noise as it rotates, and I don't need any sonar pinging, hitting the top of that fish, hitting its lateral line. I want that fish to think that's actually wounded bait sitting down there, and you know, feel comfortable effectively taking that bait. So that's just a little important tip there that has really done well for me, and I recommend it for you guys too. Okay, so now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the overall setup, right? We got kind of the basics aside, the nice to haves aside, but what are the essentials in setting up a rattle reel? Well, I'm just unwinding it here, and it's probably really difficult for you to see this. The way I like to run my rattle reel, and I'll see if that will focus for you. Yep, there it is I like to run that fly line to a barrel swivel, and then I tie a fluorocarbon leader. That's probably really hard for you guys to see right now. And again, the last thing you want is that fish seeing that colorful line. So I usually run, depending on the body of water I'm in, anywhere from a 3-foot fluorocarbon leader all the way up to a 10-foot, depending on how clear the water is. And depending on how clear the water is and the pressure, I'll run different poundage tests on that fluorocarbon. So if I'm fishing pressure water where the fish are really finicky, I'll run 6-pound fluorocarbon. I prefer Seagar fluorocarbon. It doesn't really matter which I guess color you go with. I like the yellow, the invisible stuff for rattle reels, just because again you want a really subtle, natural looking presentation down there. But the important thing is that you have some sort of clear line leader on there. And then the way I like to set it up is very similar to like how I run my dead sticks. What I like to do is, you know, about 12 to 18 inches up, I like to run a little split shot sinker. And then what I like to run is an octopus hook. I found that these octopus hooks I don't know how well you guys can see that, it's probably a little foggy. These octopus hooks, I found the fish, for whatever reason, don't seem to get gut hooked as easily. This is a number 6 octopus hook. I prefer red on my rattle reels. Some guys like orange, some guys like white, whatever the case may be. It's all a preferencing at this point, but I definitely recommend the octopus hook, especially if you're going to leave these down overnight. Seems like I get less gut hooked fish, which may or may not be an issue depending on whether you're keeping fish or not. I don't keep a lot of fish when I'm angling because we get so many fish when we're spearing, but yeah, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the setup. Weighted fly line to barrel swivel to fluorocarbon leader, split shot, and a number 6 red octopus hook. And I've had a ton of good luck with this, and it's been very successful for me, and I hope that this video is helpful for you guys too. Again, thanks again for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Comment below if you have any feedback for me on my rattle reel setup. I'm curious to hear how you guys run yours. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you next time.